if we sail a little bit high.
All right, will you pray with me? Almighty God, as we come to the reading of your word and as we sit in this place, I pray that we will hear from you. I pray that you will help us to hear and understand this story and to gain from it what you would have us to gain. Lord, we pray this in your holy name. Amen. Is life easy? Is life fair? We all deal with stuff in our life. Good stuff and bad stuff. There's a saying which is attributed to many people, so I'm just going to say there is a saying. It says, be kind because everyone you meet is fighting a hard battle. We are all dealing with stuff. Maybe we're dealing with the loss of a job. Maybe we're dealing with a situation that we can't seem to understand or grasp. Maybe we're struggling with a personal issue. Maybe it's a job issue. Maybe we're mourning the loss of something. Maybe there's just a situation in our life that we can't seem to get past. But we're all fighting something. At any given time in our life, there's stuff going on. And we all have battles, circumstances in life that seem insurmountable, strongholds that stand in the way of the abundant life that Jesus promised us in John 10:10. The only way to jump these hurdles and to gain victory over them is through faith and obedience. Now, if you look at your sheet today, if you have a sheet, if you don't have one, raise your hand and maybe Nick can give you one if you want one. I'm giving you the key to the sermon right off the bat. Those two spaces, faith and obedience, go there. The only way to gain victory over the things that are going on in our life are through faith and obedience. Because there are things that we can't deal with on our own. There are circumstances we can't change on our own. But today we're going to talk about God's capability and how we can gain victory through faith and obedience. Now, before I get to our scripture today, I'm going to tell you the background. We're in the Old Testament. We're in Joshua this week. The people of Israel had been wandering around the desert for 40 years. Kind of aimlessly. If you've ever been over to Israel, maybe you haven't been, if you ever get to go, the desert's okay big, but it's not really huge. It's nothing compared to some of the deserts in like Africa and those kind of things. It seems astounding that they could get lost for 40 years. But here they are, wandering around for 40 years. They just crossed over the Jordan River into the land of Canaan. Now, do you remember what the land of Canaan was to the people of Israel?
Promised land.
The promised land, the land that God had promised them. It was this land of milk and honey that we read about in Deuteronomy that God had promised to the people over 500 years ago. So here they are, spending 40 difficult years in the desert, wandering around. They were on the eastern banks of the Jordan, and their challenge now, take Canaan. Take this promised land. But, and this is a big but, before they could take the land, they had to deal with this one obstacle in their way. A stronghold, a city called Jericho. It was an unconquerable, walled city. Its fortifications were imposing. And it was considered to be unconquerable. So they can take hold of their land, and there's just this one little big thing standing in their way. So now we're in Joshua 6, if you want to follow along. Joshua 6, starting with verse 1. Now Jericho was shut up inside and out because of the Israelites. No one came in, no one came out. The Lord said to Joshua, "See, I have handed Jericho over to you, along with its kings and soldiers. March around the city, all the warriors circling the city one time. Do this for 6 days, with 7 priests bearing 7 trumpets of the ram's horn before the ark." Now, you know what the ark is? The Ark of the Covenant. Have you seen Indiana Jones? Okay. So this is a pretty important thing. It is where the 10 Commandments were carried. So this is an important thing that was going around the city with him. Anyway, God continued his directions. On the 7th day, march around the city 7 times. Now, we're not talking like a tiny, tiny place, okay? We're talking a big city that they're having to march around. March around the city 7 times, the priests blowing the trumpets, and when they make a long blast with the ram's horn, as soon as you hear the sound of the trumpet, then all the people should shout a great shout, and the wall of the city will fall down flat, and the people will be able to charge straight ahead. Pretty specific directions, right? So Joshua, son of Nun, summoned the priests and said to them, "Take up the Ark of the Covenant. Have the 7 priests carry the 7 trumpets of the ram's horn in front of the ark." And to the people he said, "Go forward and march around the city. Have the armed men pass on before the ark of the Lord." And as Joshua was commanding the people, the 7 priests carrying the 7 trumpets before the Lord went forward, blowing their trumpets. And the ark of the covenant of the Lord followed them. And the armed men went before the priests and blew the trumpets, and the rear guard came after the ark, and the trumpets blew continually. To the people Joshua gave this command: "You shall not shout, or let your voice be heard, nor shall you utter a word until the day I tell you to shout." Now, can you imagine being told to do something like this and then saying, "Okay, but don't talk about it"? "Then you shall shout." So the ark of the Lord went around the city, circling it once, and they came into the camp and spent the night in the camp. And then Joshua rose early in the morning, and the priests took up the ark of the Lord, and the 7 priests carrying the 7 ram's horns before the ark of the Lord passed on, blowing the trumpets continually. The armed men went before them, the rear guard came after, and the trumpets blew continually. And on the 2nd day they marched around the city once and returned to the camp. And they did this for 6 days. And then on the 7th day they rose early at dawn and marched around the city in the same manner, but 7 times. And it was only on that day that they marched around the city 7 times. And on the 7th time, when the priest had blown the trumpet, Joshua said to the people, "Shout, for the Lord has given us this city. This city and all that is in it will be devoted to the Lord for destruction. Only Rahab the prostitute and all who were with her house shall live, because she hid the messengers that we sent. As for you, keep away from the things devoted to destruction, so as not to covet." So he's saying, don't plunder, right? This stuff is not ours. "Don't take any of the devoted things and make a camp of Israel an object for destruction, bringing trouble upon it. But all silver and gold and all vessels of bronze and iron are sacred to the Lord, and they shall go into the treasury of the Lord." But take the money for tithe, right? That's what he's saying? Okay. So the people shouted, and the trumpets were blown. As soon as the people heard the sound of the trumpets, they raised a great shout, and the wall fell down flat. So the people charged straight ahead into the city and captured it. This is the word of the Lord. Thanks be to God. The prophet Paul assures us everything that was written in the past was written to teach us, so that through endurance and the encouragement of the Scriptures we might have hope. This is the story that gives hope, isn't it? Yes. We see that God makes promises and God fulfills promises. We can see that Joshua's faith and obedience led to victory. This is a story of God giving victory over a stronghold, over a circumstance that seemed insurmountable, to the people who in their faith were obedient. Now think about this story a little bit. The people of Jericho were holed up in this fortress city because of the army, the Israelites, who were carrying their weapons, most going before the ark to protect it from attacks. After them, the parade and the marching band blowing trumpets, and finally the ark. In the eyes of these enemies from Jericho, wouldn't it seem like a strange army? Crazy! Yes! They would seem like crazy people. For sure. They might also not have seemed like much of a threat. They had no siege engines, none of those towers that you would put up to go over the walls, not even a battering ram. All they had were some swords and spears, and trumpets, and instruments. But boy, could they march. And the steady trump, trump, trump of the foot soldiers was enough probably to drive the enemy batty. But it was not their weaponry or their fighting skills or their skilled marching abilities that had the people of Jericho worried, because like the scripture said, nobody was coming in and coming out. They seemed maybe like crazy people, but still, there was some fear. Why? The people of Jericho had heard rumors of Israel's God. The fear of God preceded the people of God. And Jericho knew that the powerful army of the Egyptian Pharaoh had been wiped out by the Israelites' God. It was this fear, the fear of Israel's God, that had them pulled up in their city. It seemed like the people of Jericho had faith in our God as well. So the Israelites were facing this insurmountable problem. We sometimes face insurmountable problems, battles, struggles. We can't seem to get past. We can't seem to get a hold of. Why do we get stuck? Why do we face hardships and trials and battles? Why can't we claim victory over these things? Maybe you are facing a Jericho in your life. I'm not going to ask you to raise your hands. You know whether it's there or not. Maybe a sin that you can't overcome. Maybe a person that you can't find the strength to forgive. Maybe a situation that has you completely overwhelmed. Or a problem that keeps resurfacing over and over again. Or a habit that you can't seem to beat. We don't mind obstacles, right? Unless they get in our way. What is standing in your way? What is holding you back? What is keeping you from the victory of God's promises? What is your Jericho? I just want you to think about that today. It is hard to be faithful when we are facing something so difficult. And I think we get weary. But a lot of the problems that we bring on ourselves stem from the fact that we tire of marching and marching and marching. We're unable to continue to do what God has asked us to do. With rare exceptions, the battle that we face in overcoming habits and sins and circumstances in life will be long and drawn out. There's no easy fix. That's not why we're here today, to get an easy fix. What we're here today to talk about is how, through faith and obedience, God will have victory. I don't know what your battles are. I know what mine are. And I know that we're all fighting. So how long will you continue to fight your battle? How long do you plan on marching? For 7 days, the children of Israel marched around the city, and for all their effort and all their energy they spent, it seemed like nothing was happening. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 days. And then on the 7th day, one time around, 2 times around, nothing is happening, nothing is happening. They must have been weary. They must have wondered, what are we doing? what is Joshua asking us to do? Is God going to be faithful? Around and around and around the walls they marched. How many times have we faced down our Jericho? That same enemy that pricks our spirit and jeers at us and causes us to wonder, will God be faithful? The Israelites looked at the wall and thought, impossible, unattainable. How are we going to get our promise? And we do the same thing, don't we? We look at our wall, that stronghold or that circumstance, and we think, impossible, unattainable. God, where is your promise? And the story of Joshua and the Israelites at Jericho gives us the answer: faith and obedience. So let's first talk about faith. We see Joshua exercising that faith when he called the people to shout in 6:16. Shout, for the Lord has given you the city. He didn't say maybe. He didn't say if we do this. He said, the Lord has done this. That's faith. He had faith that God would do what God had said. Are we that bold in our faith? The victory was assured by God's word. If God said it, consider it done. That is faith. I've struggled with faith. And I'm sure some of you have too. I've struggled to believe that God is true to the promises. I've struggled to believe that God will do what God has said. I think it would have been hard to have faith in the situation of the Israelites. After 40 years of wandering around, knowing that there's this promise. 40 years, I mean, that's older than some of us are. That's a long time. They've been wandering around, actually 500 years since God first made the promise, right? So generations and generations. But they got up on that first morning. Maybe it was a Monday. They got up Monday morning. You don't really feel like doing anything, right? But they got up and they began at first light. They gathered their belongings. They put on their garments. They combed their hair and off to the wall. It was exciting maybe the first time around because it was something new. And it beat sitting around the camp worrying about what was going to happen. Sometimes it's better to move, right? Than to just sit still and worry. Even if you aren't sure what's going to be doing. So they get up and they go on that first day and they march around the city. And I wonder if they thought, like, God's going to do this bit by bit. Because they weren't real clear on what was happening. They were just obeying what Joshua had said. And so they finished their march on that Monday afternoon and went back to camp. It had been a long day and they'd done what God had said. But nothing had changed. And then came Tuesday. And the same thing happened. They got up, they got ready, they did what Joshua had said that they should do, they marched around the city, they came back to camp. And nothing had changed. Nothing seemed different. It didn't seem any closer to conquering Jericho. Wednesday, Thursday, Friday, Saturday. Every day it was the same thing. I wonder if that army didn't feel like they were in a rut. I wonder if they didn't feel like what they were doing was completely ridiculous. I wonder if they struggled to keep the faith. I wonder if they thought, is this all there is? How many times are we going to have to go around before God does something? I'm tired of walking in circles. Let's attack them now. But Joshua said, no. Be quiet. Be obedient. Be faithful. Life seems that way sometimes, huh? We're walking around in circles. Nothing seems to be happening. God, I have seen this thing so many times before. I need change. I've failed at this temptation. I've failed at this test, this problem continues to come up. Please help me overcome it. And all you hear is, walk by faith. And sometimes that's a struggle. Then came that seventh day. And on this day, the army was assembled well before daylight, much earlier than usual. And they march out, perhaps with a little grumbling and complaining, although they were supposed to talk, so maybe not. And maybe they missed breakfast. They have to start in the dark. And they think, well, at least we only have to march one more time around the city. But after the first trip, they start around again. And they think, what's going on? Why are we still marching? I was ready to go back to camp. What's the deal, Joshua? Why are we going around again? And Joshua said, forward march, and off they went. Again and again and again. 7 times around the city. Did Joshua really know what he was doing? I can imagine them thinking that. What are we doing? Are we going to march Jericho's defenders to death? Deafen them with our trumpets? Dazzle them with our tremendous weaponry that we never use? Or wear them out because they're so tired of watching us? This is no way to win a battle. The worst part was that they couldn't say anything. They were told to be quiet. I am not good at that, by the way. I cannot imagine that I would have been quiet in that situation. I would have been getting real snarky. What are we doing? Why do we keep doing this? But the command of Joshua was to keep silent. Let that be a lesson for us, right? Don't be surprised if you have to continue to walk around that obstacle, around that barrier, around that circumstance. Don't be surprised if it doesn't happen immediately that God gives you victory. It is in those times that we prove our faith and trust in God's abilities. And at the end of their 13th march, 6 days, 7 on the 7th day, the army of Israel came to a halt. And there was silence. And you kind of wonder, what were the people of Jericho thinking? And the soldiers might have thought, this is it, now we get to attack, prepare yourselves, we're going to fight to the death. And they took their weapons. But the order for attack never came. Instead, Joshua said, now shout to the Lord. Praise the God of heaven. Shout for victory. Blow the trumpets. We shall overcome. The victory is ours. And they did. And they shouted. That is the command from the God Almighty. Shout to the Lord, all you people. Sing praises to your King. The battle is not ours, it is the Lord's. And the army gave a shout, and the trumpets of the Lord blared, announcing that the time of God's attack had begun, and suddenly the ground began to shake. And I don't know if there was an earthquake. I don't know if God was somehow moving those walls. I don't know what happened, but it doesn't really matter. What matters is that the foundation crumbled. The wall was flat, and it says the army was able to go straight in. Jericho was won without even so much as a single arrow from the army of Israel. Joshua had amazing faith. Faith in God. Faith in what God had said. And the Israelites had amazing faith. Faith that their leader Joshua was in tune with God. For me personally, the big question here is, how do we get faith like Joshua? Because I read these stories and I think, I have never been that strong. And there's no easy answer. We can ask God, pray for more faith. Even Joshua prayed at the beginning of our scripture. We see that he's talking to God. You can pray for more faith, ask God to increase your faith. You can read our Bible, read the stories of faith, be reminded that God is true and God's promises are true. And we can look for God. However you see it, worship, friends, nature, God is present. Look for God. But ultimately, faith is a bet. It's a gamble. I believe that it's true, but it's a choice. And it's a hard choice. If our trust in God is going to grow, we have to learn to step out in faith. Moving out of our comfort zone and taking chances. Because faith, Hebrews 1:11 says, is the assurance of things hoped for and the conviction of things not seen. You're not going to find proof that will give you a complete answer, then it's not faith. Faith is believing, hoping. And I gotta admit, as I'm working on this sermon, and I get to this part of it, I think, how can I possibly leave it there and not give any answers? But there aren't. You have to choose. Will I believe what God has said is true? Or will I not? And Joshua had that choice too. Will I believe, even though this seems ridiculous, that God will give us victory over this city? Or will I not? So we have to have faith. But that's not it. What's the other word I gave you?
Obedience.
Obedience. It's one thing to trust God and have faith. It's a completely separate thing to act on that faith. God does not want people simply agreeing and believing. God wants obedience and work. God wants followers, not admirers. Our Christianity is proved by more than just our words. We can say whatever we want to say, but if we don't act on that, then we prove that we don't really believe it. James 2:26 reminds us faith without works is dead. It's not enough to say, I believe God, and then live in an ungodly way. If we believe in God, we will obey God. If we believe the Bible, we will do what the Bible commands. Our faith goes to work. We make every effort to do exactly what God has said and keep God's commandments. Joshua and the Israelites carried out the commandments of God to the letter, including the number of days, the number of times, even the way that they were set up in their army, 7 trumpets and 7 priests and all of those things. They obeyed God's command, and they conquered Jericho. God gave them victory over an enemy that was trying to keep them out of the promised land. If we have true faith, we are compelled to obey God. And God gives us victory over the enemies that we face throughout life, although that victory may look differently than what we want. Obedience is the clear evidence of faith. How we act is the clear evidence of what we believe. We can conquer those strongholds and be victorious in our life if we have faith and are obedient. God gave directions to Joshua. They were not suggestions. They were commands. Their victory over Jericho was totally reliant on that obedience. Let me be clear, though, it is not easy to be obedient all of the time. It requires commitment to God and a certain willingness to not really care what other people think, which is getting easier and easier the older I get. When I was a teenager, I had trouble with this. But as I've gotten older, I care less and less about what people think. But it requires that. Imagine if you were one of those Israelites. How do you think you'd feel marching around the walls of Jericho, expecting to overcome that city? I expect we'd feel pretty ridiculous. I mean, there's no way you can march around a city and expect the walls to come down. That kind of thing just doesn't happen. But obedience, even when God's commands seem silly, crazy, foolish, obedience brings victory. When we are facing seemingly insurmountable odds, we must learn that our Jericho victories are won when we are faithful and obedient to God. Imagine the people on the top of those walls harassing us, yelling insults at us, and dumping their garbage on us for 7 days, because I'm sure that was happening. There's no way that the people of Jericho were just watching this happen, right? Imagine. I can't imagine I'd be encouraged to go back to the camp every night and then come back out the next morning. But then think about Noah. How absurd did Noah feel building that big old ark, being made fun of the whole time, when there was no rain? Or imagine Moses at the Red Sea, as he stretched out his arm and imagined that the water would part. Have you ever seen anything like that? Think about David hurling a rock at Goliath. What about Peter stepping out of the boat and expecting to walk on water? Ridiculous. Absurd. Sometimes, folks, we've got to risk looking ridiculous, because it's at those times that God comes through the biggest. On that 7th day, after marching around the city 7 times, the Israelites were instructed to shout. I know that it is hard to be loud and bold in your faith. We would maybe prefer to whisper, because we don't want to look ridiculous, but obedience is what God asks from us. Obedience, even when we don't understand. Obedience that is founded on faith, on our hope in a God that we've not seen. So we've got to risk. We've got to risk looking absurd, but being obedient to what God has asked us to do. We've also got to stay committed, because sometimes we give up on the plan before it's finished. Someone once chided Edison by saying, "Why don't you just give up? You've failed 1,000 times." And his reply was, "No, I haven't failed. I've only found 1,000 ways that it won't work." We have to continue to work. We have to keep going. It's not enough to say one time that we're going to serve God. Like the Israelites, every morning we should get up with a renewed commitment to serve the Lord the best way we know how. Every day we should commit to being obedient until we complete what God has given us to complete. Dietrich Bonhoeffer, who is a pastor and a theologian, said, "For faith is only real when there is obedience, never without it, and faith only becomes faith in the act of obedience." Faith and obedience. That is how we will claim victory over our Jericho walls. So what is the point of all of this? I just said victory, right? Victory over those battles that we face. Victory over that sin. Victory over that circumstance that seems insurmountable. Over those strongholds that stand in our way of abundant life in God. And if not now, then in eternity. Because God is good to keep promises. On the 7th day, the Israelites got up and marched around the city. And the 7th time around, they shouted, and suddenly the walls of Jericho collapsed, and the Israelites charged straight into the city from every side and captured it. Joshua saw God come through because he trusted God. He obeyed God, and he followed through himself. And when you follow through, you will see God is faithful. It doesn't take a degree in rocket science to know that the success of this situation did not come from their walking around the city. There wasn't any mysterious force about their walking. Nothing crazy that was going on in them. It wasn't the number of days that they walked or the volume of their shout. God could just have easily had told them to walk one day around the city. But God was looking for something else. Faith and obedience. The key to victory is faith and obedience. The key to Israelites' victory lies in their obedience to God's word. It is the key to receiving what God had promised them. This land is promised for you, God told them. But in order to get there, you need to be obedient. God has promised us so many things. Life abundantly, life eternally, victory. Maybe not in the way that we think, but victory. But we must be faithful, and we must be obedient. So what brought those walls down? The power of God. But that power was released in response to Israel's complete faith and complete obedience to God's way. Church, our faith must be evidenced by obedience. The children of Israel had faith, they obeyed, and the walls of Jericho fell. They won that battle. At the beginning I said we're all fighting battles, and it's true. They may be big, they may be little. It may be that you're not right now, but you will be someday. The real battle, though, is often not the visible battle, but the invisible battle that we fight within us. Can we trust God? Is God really in control? Is God present? And finally, will I have faith? Will I obey? The Israelites claimed victory over Jericho and entered their promised land. It didn't happen by anything other than faith and obedience. God's plan was to build the faith of the people one day at a time so that they could see those walls tumble down. And God does that sometimes. God builds our faith one step at a time so that we can live in continuous victory over the world and know that God has power. Joshua was determined to follow God's instructions through to the end, no matter what. How about us, church? Are we determined to follow God? Maybe we feel discouraged. Maybe we wish that we could see more results from our obedience. Do you ever wonder if obeying God isn't all that it's cracked up to be? Do you ever wonder if you got the right message from God? Hang in there, friends. Don't lose heart. If you're doing what God wants you to do, and you can usually be pretty sure whether you're doing what God wants you to do or not, then stick it out. Maybe you've been fighting all sorts of things that seem to be taking your energy and taking your victory, but don't give up. Keep on marching. Stay strong. Keep serving the Lord. I don't know how many times you'll have to march around that thing, that wall, that stronghold that's keeping you back. But I know that God is faithful. Even when he got discouraged and the going got tough, Joshua followed through. He was faithful and he was obedient. Will we do the same? Will you stand with me? Holy God, we thank you for the story of Joshua and the city of Jericho. We thank you for an example of obedient faith. We thank you for the reminder that you are victorious. And so, God, in the midst of whatever is going on in our lives, in the midst of a situation that we just can't seem to control, in the midst of a sin that we can't seem to get past, in the midst of a life that doesn't seem to be as joyful as you want it to be, God, I pray that you will encourage us and give us faith. Increase our faith, Almighty God, that we might fully trust in you. And out of that trust, help us to be obedient to what you would have us to do. God, you are good. You are the God of Joshua, the God who defeated Jericho. And you, God, are who we serve. Thank you. Thank you, God. Amen.
This is my prayer in the desert, when all that's within me feels dry. This is my prayer in my hunger and need. My God is a God who provides. This is my prayer in the fire, in weakness or trial or pain. There is a faith greater, more worth than gold, so refine me, Lord, through the flame. I will bring praise, I will bring praise. No weapon formed against me shall remain. I will rejoice, I will declare, God is my victory and He is near. This is my prayer in the battle, when triumph is still on its way. I am a conqueror and co-heir of Christ, firm on His promise I stand. I will sing praise, I will bring praise. No weapon formed against me shall remain. I will rejoice, I will declare, God is my victory and He is here. All of my life, in every season, you are still God. I have a reason to sing. I have a reason to worship. All of my life, in every season, you are still stay, I'll stay. When you move, I'll move. I will follow you. Who you love, I'll love. How you serve, I'll serve. I'll desire, if I lose, I will follow you. Yeah, I will follow you. Yeah, I will follow you. Yeah, I will follow you.
Please prepare yourself for offertory prayer. Lord, thank you for bringing us here today to enjoy the sunshine and another great sermon. It warms our hearts and it tickles our minds to the ways that we need to serve you, Lord. Please be with us, those that are faithful. Help us reach those who need your faith. And Lord, give us the strength to be obedient in the things you command us to do. You have blessed us with so much. It's our time to help and give everything we can. We ask this all in your name, Lord. Amen.
I think it's going to make some announcements.
All right. Got a couple of announcements for everybody. First thing is 3 weeks from today, there is a picnic at the English's home. So, be aware of that, be planning on that. Also, we're going to remind you every week, we have decided not to do the luau this year. Instead, we're doing a lot of different events to reach the community. The next one is run by the youth group. And we're doing a backpack giveaway and just kind of a party for the community right before school starts. Between now and August 8th, please, if you feel led, bring donations. There should be little slips for you regarding what we need. And then on August 10th, we'll actually be giving away the backpacks. We'll be doing it here. It's from 3 to 8. I would love for folks to be here to help, to see what's going on, and maybe just to mill around and meet folks, because we believe that we have something great for young families here, and we want to put our best foot forward. So thanks.
Okay, will you stand with us, please? As we praise God as we go out. Look what the Lord has done. Look what the Lord has done. He healed my body, He touched my mind. He saved me just in time. Oh, I'm going to praise His name. Each day just the same. I want to praise Him. Look what the Lord has done. Look what the Lord has done. Look what the Lord has done. He healed my body, He touched my mind. He saved me just in time. Oh, I'm gonna praise His name. Each day just the same. I wanna praise Him. Look what the Lord has done. What a mighty God we serve. What a mighty God we serve. Angels bow before Him, heaven and earth adore Him. What a mighty God we serve. What a mighty God we serve. What a mighty God we serve. Angels bow before Him, heaven and earth adore Him. What a mighty God we serve. Look what the Lord has done. Look what the Lord has done. He healed my body, He touched my mind. He saved me just in time. Oh,
worship with us. I pray that as you go out, you will go in the peace of Christ.
At the same time. When you do something like that, look out, right? Okay, don't worry here. You take that. I'm gonna take the rest of this. Pay this later.
Yeah, I know. That's what
We don't know. We might not be here tomorrow.
And it was funny, I even told Tom, I said, Tom, I always brought it. He's reading the text. I said, tell him, because all he read was the places, you know.
Right. This is the text before the places where.
Yeah, and I said, make sure that
I
you
said,
come back.
tell me when and where. And I said, no, that's possible.
That's the part he left out. But when I even told him, I even said, when he texts back, tell him Austin, we're going to Austin. He's all right. And then, you know, we get there, I'm like, you tell him Austin Town? He goes, what do you mean? I said, we've done this before. We've ended up in
It's
now.
actually happened one other time that I didn't have two children with me, so I was able to still run the.
And then, you know, finally, Fred's like, I'm here, and I'm like, I'm looking at the bar, and I'm like,
Hey, Frank.
there ain't nobody else.
Oh, Jan.
So we missed.
I tell you what, man, I mean,
We missed.
Well, yeah, there's
we, we ended up doing was getting that dolly
Hi, thank you.
right by the. Good to see you guys.
Nice seeing you.
One of us, yeah, just came over to get them.
So do you have to go out this way or do you
Oh,
go
it's
that way?
perfect, and like, took like 10 minutes to recalibrate it.
Viola, want one back?
Oh, there's like a calibration mode.
That's what I asked her, if she was going that door out that way.
You just turn around and go that way.
I mean, I
It's
had
easier,
to reset,
shorter
like,
going
had
that
to
way.
reboot one of the digits.
Frank.
That was it. Everything works.
Yeah, I mean, we're leaving after church, so.
I mean, I have to replace the phone.
Well,
I mean, I have to
you're
replace
better
the
off
phone.
walking.
I have a hug.
Or you
You
can
know,
go.
like,
I'll probably do it. I'll only do it if I remove it to
the
the
first
shop.
one in
And then,
I'm
Oh,
leaving.
that's good.
moving it was a new.
Go with the ride. I'll see you trouble too.
So from here we go to the gate. Is the most exhausting.
We'll forget something.
It will be as
That's what you look for.